Expanding retail in Africa, a look at fuel station, peri-urban options, and growing convenience offerings. Natasha Brewer will moderate this session.
Yeah.
I'm Natasha Brewer, and I'm from Cushman Wakefield Brole, but I also wear the hat of co-chair for CoreNet Global South African Sub-Saharan South African Networking Group. CoreNet Global is a non-profit organization whose mission it is to advance the practice of corporate real estate professionals. And the association does this through designations, so really great courses, research, and networking events across the globe, and they operate out of 46 chapters and networking groups. So please feel free to come and chat to me about a trial membership opportunity and to hear more about CoreNet Global. We've also got our banner, which gives you a bit more information. So welcome to our session. We are, as CoreNet, we're in partnership with API to bring you the insights and content from an occupier perspective. So today's session is fueling convenience through forecourts and neighborhood retail, shaping the future of African retail. Across South Africa and much of Africa, we're seeing forecourts shift from being purely petroleum supply depots to becoming convenience retail hubs. And the session today is going to look at all the trends that are driving this, as well as the tenants that are occupying the space and the key trends and drivers in terms of the customer journey, as well as the investment opportunities that exist in these assets. I'm going to introduce you to our panelists. We've got Tshegofatso Mayetle from Astron Energy, who will be sharing the fuel company perspective. Got Peter Swanepoel from Hungry Lion, who has a depth of experience in our QSR and convenience retail insights. And we have Ben Kodisang from Alt Capital, who has years of experience in developing convenience retail to help us understand the investment fundamentals. I'm going to start with Tshegofatso, and he will assist us in framing the topic and understanding how the forecourt has evolved and what is driving these trends.
Thank you. Thank you, Natasha. Yeah, I think the key drivers of the evolution of fuel forecourts, as we've known them, are driven mainly by one of the key drivers is the fact that over the last 5 years, the industry has seen a significant decline from 2019-2024 period. Fuel volumes have declined roughly year on year by about 7.6%, which represent a major shift in terms of generation of revenue for fuel stations. The decline is mainly driven by a number of factors. You know, in South African context, the economic performance, the anticipation for electric vehicles. That anticipation is driving all companies' reluctance, to look at long-term leases, 20-25-year period. Typically, that is the horizon that the investment is taken. If you look at one of the key things is that also consumer behaviors and needs are changing. You're seeing a lot of patterns that has changed since COVID. There's a lot of work from home policies by different companies, which results in fewer motorists visiting the forecourts. Margins which are regulated in the South African perspective, fuel margins that is, are definitely under pressure. So you're seeing a need for fuel retailers having to diversify their income streams through looking at other income generating opportunities like the non-fuel retail space. And these are the dynamics that are impacting the performance of a fuel station as we know it, being transformed more into a mobility hub to respond to these changing patterns. I think there's a number of factors that are, impacting the evolution of forecourts as we know them, but there's definitely an indication that the decline in fuel volume sales, in the South African context also, quite interestingly, we've seen, despite the decline in fuel sales, you're seeing the increase in number of outlets. Between 2019 and 2024, fuel retail stations have increased by about 14%. Different sources estimate anything between 5,000 and 6,000 retail service stations across the country. The question is why, when the decline in fuel is happening and you're seeing the increase in the number of outlets, it talks to typically what you're seeing, the revenue being diversified, focused largely on non-fuel retail, income stream opportunities.
Might have to just use yours. Thank you for that insight. I think you're absolutely right. We could go so far as to say that petroleum companies are beginning to have to consider their position as investors in real estate and act as landlords in some instances. And in doing so, they have to look at the principles of asset optimization, which I think is going to be a really interesting point that we'll unpack a bit further with Ben a bit later. Peter, I would love to hear from you as to why are the forecourts and small convenience retail stores attracting quick service restaurants, tenants, and how do you choose your locations?
Natasha, I think let's first just start why. For any QSR or even a retailer, you want to plant your flag, so it's about brand presence. And what we found is, whether it's on transient, urban, peri-urban, it can even be township, there's certain areas where a forecourt will be the initial investment to put brick and mortar down where other guys don't. So for us, it's about that opportunity to be able to plant a flag and have a brand presence. We don't necessarily look through the view of vehicles because our strategy is inline. It's about the convenience of the consumer being able to access our product and our offering on the way home. So it has a lot to do with the day parts and the movement and obviously traffic, and for that you use data sets. So I saw Sabi earlier this morning, so Fernridge data sets, everybody knows the African eye, the Lightstone guys, there's a lot of data, but these days we can also accumulate our own data and we can see it in terms of the patterns, when people shop, what they buy, the routes that they're doing. There's fantastic data and information from the Taxi Association and their routes and how it influences us. And we also get the data from shopping center developers and the fuel retailers themselves. That influences the majority of your decision making. However, there's no substitute for the good old getting down to the site and walking it. Simply because we do not follow the drive-through model, we believe there's enough value in South Africa left to serve as the underserved in terms of people that has to use feet.
You're absolutely right. And I guess in the African context, as you said, with the broader geographies, the forecourts do become a hub for retail and convenience shopping, especially in those rural areas. So just over to you, Ben. How would you say the smaller neighborhood-based retail centers are positioned to meet this growing demand for accessible retail, especially in the peri-urban and residential areas?
Yeah, thanks, Natasha. So maybe let me start by contextualizing to say, as South African developers and owners, we definitely overbuilt and allows property upcycle in the major metropoles to the point where South Africa, I think, was the second largest GLA per capita to the US. And with e-commerce disruption, is now the largest per capita in the US. So interpose on that, the inequality in South Africa, the lack of growth, and the lack of employment. There's a huge market which is underserved, which finds itself in townships and rural areas, as well as peri-urban. And a lot of the property results that you'll see, there's performance that just underfires logic when you look at the macroeconomics of the country. So as an example, townships, markets, there's been different numbers, but estimated roughly as a market of 900 billion. And I don't know whether you noticed about 3 weeks ago, Nedbank paid 1.68 billion on Ikoka, which is a payment ecosystem. So there's a whole world that seems to be happening economic-wise. And clearly in rural areas underpinned by, what do you call this thing? There's government welfare, there's payment that people get. But bottom line is, I think retail is definitely moving closer to where people live, as opposed to where they work, which is mainly in the underserved markets. And what COVID showed us then is it's all about convenience in terms of basically bringing the services or bringing the economy to people and using the opportunity to restore the dignity to those communities.
You're 100% right, Ben, and I think the data in the last session quite clearly showed that the highest investment is concentrated in the retail and convenience shopping centre asset class. So the facts speak for themselves. So just moving on to how the customer journey plays into this, which is obviously central to both the petroleum sector and the retail sector. Tshegofatso, if you can talk to the role of the consumer expectation around convenience, accessibility, multi-purpose visits, and how the design of the forecourt is now playing into those aspects.
Thanks, Natasha. The trends that we've observed, and maybe for those that are familiar with the Johannesburg fuel retail market, I'll point out to the Rosebank Oakland node, which has got some of the good examples of changing consumer needs and expectations. The three sites that are, maybe some of you may be familiar with, Sasol the Pantry, it's our competitor. I think it's a very good reference point to look at how that is responding to changing customer needs. Customers don't just see a fuel retail station as a place where they can stop and fill up their car. The need is for them the service station to offer them other amenities like non-fuel retail related amenities. As I mentioned, the decline in fuel compared to non-fuel retail has grown by about 14% in the context of fuel retail stations, stores across the country. So we're seeing growth on the NFR side of things. Other offers like coffee, quick serve restaurants are spaces that customers are expecting from our forecourts. From a digital perspective, loyalty programs, digitalized, have become a key differentiator that all companies are competing for the share of the wallet of customers by offering them those benefits that comes with loyalty programs. You're seeing Astron Energy has just developed a site in Oaklands, a combination of traditional C-stores coupled with quick serve restaurants, but also you're providing mini office space and other areas where people that are on the road, they can have a space where they can plug in their laptop, sit comfortably and be able to have a space for working. So service stations, Ben, are almost like competing on a small scale with some of the big shopping centers, but on a convenience side of things, at a very small scale level. And it responds to the comment I made earlier on about the fact that fuel is starting to take a backseat and non-fuel retail offerings are the ones that are responding to those customer needs. Natasha.
Tshegofatso, you've mentioned a few things that I wanted to pick up on. I think, for those who have been to some of the new fuel forecourts that have the offerings like Relish and Pantry. What I'm starting to see is that it's become a destination, and that links very closely to social media as well. And if I think of what we spoke about at the shopping center conference and how all the social platforms and where you've been seen and where you meet, I mean, places like the Pantry and Relish are becoming destinations for sort of late night meetings of the 20-something and you know, being seen and starting to bring all of those elements into social media, which feed into the larger sort of retail mall marketing format. So that's very, very interesting. And then I think just in terms of, as you said, the design, if you have seen the Astron in Oaklands, what was really astounding to me was seeing the double volume format with the glass. I mean, I think in the old days, if you ever saw, I actually saw an old forecourt that was of from the era that forecourts were really petroleum, and that's the forecourt on the corner of Greenpoint, where you can see there's a building on top, and literally there's a fuel pump, and that really highlights how, you know, they have become a retail convenience hub of their own. So thank you for those insights. Just to move the topic a bit and talk to Peter about the Hungry Lion brand rollout and the phenomenon that we have seen in countries like Zambia and obviously across Africa. I specifically wanted Peter to speak to us about the forward-thinking AI that Hungry Lion has developed and implemented, which has done one of two things. One is it's helped them to accelerate their rollout, and two is it has allowed them to be very insight-driven in terms and make data-driven decision-making on their locations. So, Peter, if you could tell us a bit more about that, it would be, I think the audience will find it of real great interest.
Pleasure. So just some of the insights. We really embarked on a journey about 3 years ago of an unbelievable double. So we added approximately 150 restaurants in the last less than 18 months. And this year we'll be doing just shy of that again. We'll be opening number 521, if all goes well, the 12th of December, and then we're done for the year. Touch wood. Or my team hopes so. But I think the most important thing there is we realized pretty quickly that we're going to have to manage these things. Doing the capital side of it and the rollout is one thing, but having the people to manage this number of restaurants where our staff complement has moved from 4,000 to 10,000 people, that is quite tricky. So a couple of years ago we embarked on AI together with an entity that we started, Servios, where we monitor and we track our restaurant's performance. So the first things that we did is we removed unnecessary complications. No restaurant has a printer, manager stations are moved out, we move on tablets. There's no ordering that have to be done at the restaurant. They work according to drop schedules. We can monitor our machines on IoTs to see what is not performing. And then we assist the manager with bots. And that bots will give them nudges. And it's based on their rate of sale. We also have our cameras in the back of houses that can enable them to say, well, you need to start to prep, or there's traffic movement building up at the tills, you need to drop more, you need to improve your customer. That's AI. Okay, I think it's back on. So in terms of the efficiencies, we could see the efficiencies, but we could also see the benefit in terms of savings when it comes to better planning for our cost cycles, and just the whole business, more from an operational point of view. We're also employing the same learnings that we're doing now on the CAPEX side. We could see what's the dwell time in restaurants, how many people are coming in. We're overspecking on seating. We can reduce the seating size. We can increase seating capacity by 20% by just making the tables small and stacking them together, as opposed to the old versions where everybody has massive four-seaters. There are certain areas where seating is not required. At the fuel station, you have very limited seating. we could see it from a regional perspective. If I open in the Eastern Cape, I want more seating. If I open in Umtata, you definitely want more seating. If I'm in Limpopo, there's a lot of transient, less seating is required. So all of those learnings we can incorporate in our CAPEX, and we are now for the third year running where our CAPEX has not increased, it's actually decreasing. And we want to decrease it further. We want to decrease it by another 25% within the next 12 months. The reality is AI taught us that we need to think harder about our own business by using it as a tool to show us the areas where we should focus more, to cut cost and to up our ROI and the payback. The reality is the cost of business comes with risk. If we're not going to acknowledge and embrace that risk and find creative and ways to be assisted to reduce that risk, we do.
No, thanks, Peter. I wanted to just, I know we are running out of time, and I'm going to say thank you to the panelists for a truly insightful discussion. But I'm going to ask Ben to wrap up for us. So, I think what we've heard today is around the declining fuel volumes and the constraints on petroleum companies necessarily having the capex to fund the developments. What we've heard about the access to really great location strategy, AI, and insight planning tools from our tenants. And so I'd like Ben to just talk about where to from here. How do the developers, the quick service restaurants, and the fuel companies take this into the future?
Thanks, Natasha. So maybe let me apply some real intelligence in terms of wrapping up by saying that, my view of it, looking at what Tahofatso had to share about the pressure on fuel stations, I don't think it's competitive. I think it's collaborative, because us as property owners, capital allocators, our core mandate is actually to deploy. So I think the collaboration is really that, to partner in terms of assisting you with your store rollout. And there needs to be clearly more as population shifts to transport routes and more in terms of convenience. And clearly our partnership is a real partnership to help you grow from 521 to 1,200 by March. You need us as well in terms of the industry from wrapping up. But I think, QSR's fuel stations is collaborative. The only one warning light maybe to leave you with is impact investors, or the DFIs, are creating a bit of a capital constraint because of their zero fossil fuel policies that impact allocation decisions. But that said and done, no convenience shopping center can be complete without QSRs, and especially fuel stations, because people need to be brought to the shopping centers if they're not walk-ins. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for attending our session. And if you'd like any information about Cornet and joining as a trial member, please feel free to come and have a discussion. I'm going to go and stand by our banner for a few minutes.